Welcome back to another wet episode of Backseat Gaming. I wanted to talk about, or I guess more like reminisce about how cool video game collecting used to be. It's not that it's like terrible, I think, at the moment, but it's just a different beast entirely. And I think I wanted to give my perspective on it. I was trying to do like this, what I thought would be like a fun, type of video to make, which was the idea of like hopping into a thrift store and just looking at whatever games they had available at the thrift store and then just seeing if there's anything retro that I could just buy and try to beat in a day, like so that was basically like the whole deal is you go pick up something at Goodwill or whatever and then you try to complete it before the day's over. That includes like work and whatever responsibilities I have going on. But what ended up happening is that I went to a couple of thrift stores and an antique shop or two as well over the past like 2 days and so. And it really, I didn't run into almost anything more or less. I don't know if that's because like the real like big boy collectors and stuff scooped it up or if just people don't, donate games like they used to. Like I was honestly hoping like, I don't know, like I'd even run into like a cheap like Game Boy game or something that I could pick up even though I don't have like a Game Boy or whatever physically, just, owning it and then playing it through other means, hint, hint, wink, wink, would kind of make it feel more like, I guess, it lands a little bit more in that gray area. But it was kind of like hilariously bad. Like when at one point I ended up at like a thrift store and like the oldest console I could find was like a couple of PlayStation games. Like they had, I think, like the fourth Harry Potter movie game, which was from that era of when, video game tie-ins for movies, they were still like kind of hit or miss. Like you could get absolute fire or absolute dog water. And I remember like the first two pretty fondly, but I think that's around the time they started getting kind of lame. So that one was an almost pickup. But other than that, the rest was just like pretty much nonsense. And funnily enough, a lot of Xbox One video games at the thrift store, which I think says a lot about that. I think they're exiting the console race this coming year. But it really just made me kind of like, oh, okay, well, I guess this challenge is not happening. But might as well kind of turn it into like some type of video. I got a very like, I think it's because I grew up with a lot of it, but just a real comfort zone in antique stores, stuff like that. So I got some neat footage. I wish I'd gotten more, but I was kind of also focused on like, I was hopping in between filming and like getting people's Christmas presents and stuff like that. So it was a little bit of focus mode. But to me, video game collecting, like where it used to be was I think in like, I remember two distinct eras for it. The first one was like when I was like a kid. So like maybe like mid 2000s and before, where video game collecting, like it was always there. Like I always knew people like kept them sealed and hung on to their games and had like the classic like angry video game nerd shelf and stuff like that. But it wasn't really a thing that had taken off in the sense of like, you could still find gems pretty easily, because I had distinct memories of going to swap meets as a kid. And funnily enough, I feel like vintage instruments had a similar thing happen to them, where it was like musicians were pretty much like, well, I want the latest tech, I want the new best big thing. Like, let's get rid of all the old thing so that we can hop to the next one. And so their demand for like the vintage stuff, like the old school stuff, was completely gone. No one wanted it. And that's the era where you could find it at the swap meet and like garage sales and stuff like that, because no one really was looking to make a profit off it. They were just tossing out the old. So same with games, is that you could find Super Nintendo games. Like I remember stacks and stacks. People would get like those, I don't know how to describe them. It's, I guess, like toolbox pouches, or like kind of like when you're growing up in school and they put your behavior card with the colors and stuff like that and everyone gets their own pouch. It was like that, but it was full of like Nintendo cartridges from like the SNES, and you could get them for easily like 10, 15, 20 bucks a pop for like really good games. I think always like the stuff that was short printed or like rare was still kind of pricey, but it still wasn't that bad overall. But we would go to the swap meet and stuff. I mean, aside from like obviously like when you get pirated games, because when you get the bootleg discs, those are really cheap. But we would just score. Like we typically like would be not like a whole generation behind, but maybe like mid-generation. Like by the time I got past the PlayStation, for example, I had like a PS2 had been out for a little bit already, but it worked out perfectly, you know, because then it's really easy to pick up like all the greatest hits and like super cheap stuff at the like for like $5 a pop and stuff like that. I remember PlayStation discs being sold. But basically, what I'm saying is that it feels like almost the era of like finding gems like that is pretty much over. Like, I don't know if it's because I also live in California, but the odds of me finding like it's any PlayStation games, anything that's like older, like before the 2000s type of console games, like it seems like that era is a little bit over. At most, I remember being at a Savers recently and seeing like a pile of Nintendo Wiis that I think needed to be repaired, which I'm sure I could have done so really easily and flipped if I, felt like putting a little bit of elbow grease into them. But a little bit of that magic feels like it's gone. So that's like a little bit of a bummer. And then the other era I remember too is like growing up as a teenager. I live in SoCal, which is home to the famous or infamous, I don't know what the word is, but Frankenstein collectible show. So to me, like collecting games used to be so simple as like you walk in, you can get things even without like the disc. For example, like I picked up a copy of Smash Brothers when I was in high school for the GameCube for like $30, honestly. Like it had a case, but it just was missing the case sleeve or whatever. But it was a perfectly working, clean copy of Smash Brothers, which I think now is like twice the price, which makes sense. The demand goes up. It's only fair. More people want to get into it. Like, this is definitely not a video, I think, about complaining. It's more so like just reminiscing and kind of reflecting back on how different it used to be. But yeah, I remember walking into Frankenstein's and you'd have several booths that you could basically browse like entire shelves of games and just pick stuff up and swap it out for super cheap. And just seeing the prices between my teenage years and then to like my mid 20s and stuff like that, especially when they changed locations, just seeing the prices increase because people started learning more and more about it. And, you gotta make ends meet. So you're obviously gonna want to bump up your prices a little bit in order to compete with just like, I'm sure, costs, and you just take advantage because you need to have some type of overhead, But that's also not to mention too, is that a lot of companies, like, it's interesting, this always happens to every medium where like people don't really take preservation too seriously at first. Like, one of my holy grail gaming things I wish I could try, or I hope to try one day, would be the original lost beta of the first Sonic the Hedgehog, which has been, I think, only, correct me if I'm wrong, Sonic historians, but if I remember right, it's only been ever displayed, I think, at like a Tokyo convention, like maybe once ever. And I don't even know if people got to play it or if it was just one of those like demo discs. But like, it's so infamous that people have tried to recreate it from scratch because the whole deal is that Sega themselves lost it. They were going to toss it onto like a collection in the mid 2000s, but they straight up were like, I have no idea where the source code went, bro. We're sorry. So we're not going to show that to you because we literally can't. And so that kind of stuff, along with the fact that just things are going to start degrading soon. Like, I was reading the other day that like if you have a Nintendo DS or a 3DS, I think that there's certain cartridges, depending on when they were manufactured, like what year, they're just going to start to straight up expire soon. So you're just going to have like a blank gaming cart, So it's like, we're barely starting to take the preservation of things seriously. And by we, really, I mostly mean like gaming companies themselves. Like, fans are always obsessed enough that they'll figure it out. And our physical media is like dying, like CD-ROM, like discs, like the PlayStation discs and stuff like that. Those are eventually also going to be completely blank. So it's kind of like, what does the future of collecting games look like? Like, is the idea that I can just walk into Goodwill or like a garage sale or something like that and find an old gem? It's like, what's the longevity on that? Because it doesn't seem like, between people like raising the prices because they know what they have and the demand is up. So it's like impossible to find like hidden gems now. But the other thing being like the whole like preservation / like digital media gets like just erased at some point. Like eventually it just like degrades. That's the word I was looking for. What does that look like? Is that going to be like an experience of the past? I don't know. But I'm hoping that the rest of this video I can dedicate to just like, hey, here's some fun footage and stuff like that. Come join me as I try to hunt, through thrift stores. I could maybe even show off, like, or that could be its own video, maybe showing off the games I physically own. Like, my current game collection is pretty small. And maybe I'll see. If I don't do it then let me know in the comments if you'd like to see that. I'm definitely down to make a whole video on what I own. But if I get some time to record footage of that, I will. But otherwise, yeah, that's kind of what we're up to, is we're just out and about, just trying to see if we can nail that challenge. Probably ending up being for the next video, if anything. I think this video would be more so, again, like I just wanted to like kind of get some thoughts out of my head in terms of like, what is video game collecting going to look like? What is it now? You know, like thankfully it's not like prices during the pandemic era, because that's when it was pretty insane. But I think it just overall was like one of those things that made me like a little bit sad, because it's just been like a universal trend for all of my hobbies. You know, like I'm also really into trading cards, and you know, you already know I like Pokemon. But I mean, I also love One Piece. One Piece is like one of my favorite mangas. And when that got a TCG, it was incredibly explosive, the demand. So I was like, oh, well, that makes sense. You know, I'll kind of casually get into it. But even that is seeing its waves right now, where right now it's like impossible to find product and everyone's hoarding things. And it's like, where does this all lead to? Like, I know it's going to like settle down. I know the wave comes back down, but what is like the end game here? Like, what's it all going to look like? Is it just going to implode and cause everything to be super cheap? I sure hope so, because I'm really just a fan of the artwork. I don't care too much about like trying to make a profit or whatever. And same with gaming. It's like, where does it go to, you know? But like I said, I think the rest of this video, I just wanted to kind of like, I know I'm a gaming channel, but just kind of dedicate to the adventure of like trying to hunt for video games in person. I guess it's a small preview for a future video. Like I do want to do that challenge of trying to find something old school and seeing if we can beat it in one day. But really, I guess maybe the point of this video is like, I'm just gonna hit up a bunch of thrift stores and let's see if we can find anything cool. How about that? That'll be the point of this video, is let's just go try to find something cool secondhand. There's places like that are still my jam, 100%. So that's the end of the video. I owe you guys at least a challenge video for sure. I think I know how to space it better so that I'm hitting up thrift stores, and we'll see if we can run into something on the next shopping trip. But if not for sure, we have a flea market that's actually coming to the neighborhood. So I think I'd like to do like a swap meet version of this challenge. So basically hit up the swap meet, see what retro games I can find. Maybe we do the same type of challenge where like if I can beat it in a day, but maybe something else like, hey, here's like the rarest thing I could find or something like that. It'll be fun. But at least now I know where all the good thrifting spots are, and I hit up a couple of cool antique shops as well. So it was real cool to be able to know like where everything is now, I guess, and it'll make the challenge for sure easier. There's something that's real, like, I guess, like really like bittersweet almost about browsing like these antique stores. Like I was here just looking for some games and stuff, and I found myself surrounded by just like history, you know. We all get so obsessed with owning things, and you know, here's our house with our things in it, and it's great and dandy, and then one day we're just gone, and it's either because like we ourselves are gone and we've moved on from this world, or just our stuff, like, you know, we've moved on from our possessions and it's time to give them up and give them to someone else. So I felt real peace, real at home being in these antique stores and stuff like that. And while I didn't walk away with any gaming cartridges or discs or anything like that for my challenge, it was just a real humbling experience being surrounded by so much history. But it is kind of still like a bummer in the sense of like how I was saying, right, where you don't really have like the whole, like you stumble into random gems and stuff like that. I'm hoping this search will go better at the swap meet for sure. But again, we'll give this another whirl, and next video like I'll upload will for sure have like something, you know, like it'll be for sure a challenge video versus more of like a, I guess, just my thoughts type of video like this one. But I'm hoping that I do run into like maybe even stuff that I don't know about, because there's actually like some great music that I found that way, you know. Like sometimes I've gotten records just based off of because I thought the cover of the record was fun or cool or something like that. Like there's some real hidden gems I found out that way, like Donnie and Marie's Going Coconuts. And if you want to go video game related, there's these weird Like I think I don't. They're not soundtracks. They're just like I guess like children's vinyls that they made based off of games from like I think the '70s or something like that. Anyways, there's a Pac-Man vinyl that I hope to own one day. Um, that I saw in person, but I didn't get to buy. But it's full of like just wacky, corny '80s music. But it sounds like this, like a Jack Stauber record would sound like today. But yeah, I'll close it off with this. I feel very grateful to be in an era where it's so easy to just emulate everything because there's a lot of stuff that I wouldn't have gotten to experience. Some of my favorite games of all time. Growing up as a kid, especially, your parents only have so much resources. And even though as a kid, you paradoxically have more time, there's only so much you get to experience. You can't nail everything. Everyone misses things, shared gaming experiences, and stuff like that. There's tons of games that I haven't played yet that tons of people regard as their favorites of all time. And that's just kind of how it goes for everything with movies, with music. So I'm really grateful that I can just, emulate lots of stuff from the comfort of like my handheld. Like it blows my mind that this technology exists now. But overall, I think that's all the thoughts I had about this. Try to go to Goodwill and find something to do a fun retro gaming challenge, but it didn't quite work out. We'll see if we do even like that collection video I was talking about earlier. Maybe I can show you what I still own, which more or less boils down to just mostly like, I think like the DS Pokemon cards, but I think I own a couple of interesting things. Anywho, yeah, I'd love to start a retro gaming collection too, but again, all my concerns earlier about like media degrading, not to mention the storage space for it are real concerns. So I just can't help but wonder what this will look like in the future. And I think that's kind of the fun of making challenges like this. That it gets me to think a lot more about this medium in maybe ways that I hadn't before. And it just kind of makes me think, like, what does the future hold? And that's always a lot of fun. But otherwise, I invite you, if you enjoyed this video, this rambling, to like and subscribe to the channel. I just like to do like a lot of talking head videos, but I'm trying to move into like kind of mixing it up. We'll get out there and do some field work and see what else we can get up to on this channel. But other than that, you know how I say, like and subscribe. This has been Backseat Gaming, and I'll see you guys very soon. Merry Christmas. I'm pretty sure this is going up after Christmas, so enjoy your break if you're still on it. And if you got any stories of hidden gems that you came across, just let me know in the comments. That way I can at least live vicariously through your comment. But see ya.